Good evening, everyone. It's Sunday night, and this is Lord Malachite deciding to broadcast again. I'm putting together this video regarding the latest episode of Star vs. the Forces of Evil. I went on my usual weekly animation binge on Saturday night, so it's now Sunday night. We're just a few hours away from the next episode, so let me give my thorough and final breakdown of the last episodes, which was Star on Wheels and Fetch. I've decided to wear this particular pony shirt as I get into these episodes. Nice shot of Pinkamena here because, well, what she's saying pretty much says it all, doesn't it? I can't. I honestly just can't anymore. I'm going to go through everything that's wrong with these episodes, but at this point it feels like the show is just becoming so broken and these characters are becoming such shells of their former selves that I feel like I'm watching this so that I can actually record these videos and give a detailed breakdown of where the show failed. I really don't know what happened between season 1 and season 2 to turn the show into something this horrifically bad. Season 1 was extremely well written. The characters, they were really bright and they popped. They had these great relationships. Star basically being this vortex of entropy, almost like a chaos incarnate, coming in and wreaking havoc in Marco's life, who liked to have everything simple and compartmentalized and liked to play it safe. And these two characters, just from the start, bounced off each other and managed to forge this just really cool and unique friendship. And we see them go on all these adventures together. And as season 1 built, and the plot with Ludo wanting to steal the wand, and him being kind of this inept villain, and then eventually Toffee comes in, and we have the whole climax in the castle where he takes over from Ludo and kicks Ludo out. Toffee kidnaps Marco. Star goes to rescue him, ends up destroying her wand. Ludo's castle is destroyed in the aftermath, and we're left with a lot of question marks on what will happen in season 2. None of those are really being answered, but that's not even the major problem here. I mean, it's a new season. We want characters to be developed, so they certainly don't have to rush to what the core story is going to be. I'm willing to give them time on that. The problem is that the episodes that we're getting just continue to make these characters be dumber and dumber. There's no learning going on. In fact, actual canon is being forgotten about. After watching these episodes, there's no way I can believe that there is any character bibles for these shows. And if there are character bibles for these shows, then they certainly aren't being used. And that's a shame because I'm going to lay the blame where it belongs as we go through these episodes. And I'm going to start each one by going through the actual credits and trying to give some background on who the major players behind the scenes are before we actually delve into the episodes themselves. I've decided with the advent of this particular episodes and why they were so not good that I've actually brought a few pops along for the ride, and we'll get to those later when I finish this analysis, deconstruction, rant. I don't even know what to call it at this point in time, but I'm going to try to painstakingly break down every major failing that these episodes have. So let me begin to get into that as we go. The first episode was Star on Wheels, and we see in the credits that the story was written by Dominic Bisignano, Aaron Hammersley, Amy Higgins, John Infantino, and Darren Nefsey herself. Right off the bat, I'm going to say that probably having too many cooks spoils the soup, and this episode is a huge, it drives that point home so much. It's a huge example. The writing in this episode is just bad, but we'll get into that as I get into the actual episode itself. Out of the story there, we see that Dominic Bisignano and Aaron Hammersley are listed first. They have been major players with the show from the beginning, especially in season 1. In fact, Dominic and Aaron have written for many episodes, but specifically they worked together on Muberty and Blood Moon Ball. Both were episodes that they wrote just by themselves. So this is a good team. I mean, I don't think anybody in the community is going to claim that Muberty and Blood Moon Ball were bad episodes from season 1. They're some of the finest that we got from season 1. So these are writers that know who these characters are. I can't speak as much for the other ones outside of Darren herself, who created the whole series and concept, but What we have here is good writers writing bad scripts. What is going on with that? I don't know. What is the reason for it? Obviously, there's been some kind of change in direction around the show because so many things have changed, and we're going to get into that in a moment. The actual writers and storyboarders, now that's different than the story writers. For those that don't know, the story can be conceived by one or multiple people, and they're basically saying, hey, I have this idea for an episode where this and this and that happens, and they basically come up with the whole framework of it. The writers and the storyboarders then plan out the actual episode, plan out each scene. They're the ones that are responsible for writing the dialogue, for writing the stage directions that the animators are going to follow. So they're the ones that really write what we see on screen. They take that story and they transform it into something that we see. And then, of course, the director was Piero Peluso. I looked him up in the show himself, and he is also not a slouch. While he directed this episode, he himself wrote St. Olga's Reform School for Wayward Princesses, probably one of the most pivotal episodes of season one, not to mention one of the best. And he also co-wrote the Diaz Family Vacation and Royal Pain. Diaz Family Vacation introduced us to some pretty interesting things. We got to see what Muni is actually like outside the castle. And Royal Pain gave us what River really thinks of Earth when he spends some time here. So these are both pretty good episodes. They might not have been the most important ones in season one, but both of those two that he co-wrote were they were pretty good. Season one really didn't have too much in the way of bad episodes. And St. Olga's Reform School, which he did all by himself, was phenomenal. So he was the primary writer on that. So again, he was the director here. This is an episode staffed by people that know that they're doing. We can't really lay the blame and say that it's a bunch of people that don't understand the show coming in and making changes to it. So at this point in time, with as many episodes as have been in season two, I can only determine that the changes that they've made, which are absolutely changes for the worse, these are changes that are being done on purpose. They have some kind of system in place. Seems to be the direction they want to pursue. I know a lot of people like these episodes, so let me get into why they are just not very good, and let's see what we can do to go through this, and hopefully I can make you understand why I really hate the direction the show is going in so much. First off, right off the bat, Star on Wheels opens with Marco riding his bicycle and Star basically hanging onto the back of it, which we have seen her do throughout season one. Probably the time we saw her do this the biggest was in the Benedict Incident, and herein lies a major problem. When Marco decides he's going to teach Star how to ride a bike herself, Star doesn't seem to quite understand how it works, and this is a major problem because I'm going to pull this up right from the Benedict Incident. We have a scene early on where Star is desperate to get the Benedict wand. She wants to go downtown to go find a better store and get it. So she jumps on the back of Marco's bike. Marco, who is on his way to karate and has no interest in pursuing the stupid Benedict wand. Regardless, she jumps on the back of his bike when they're in the driveway. And when Marco doesn't start moving, and she is upset by this, and I'm going to quote verbatim from the Benedict Incident here, Marco, we're not moving. You push these little thingies, and she's actually handling with her hands the pedals on the bottom of the bike. You push these little thingies with your feet. Honestly, sometimes I wonder if you have a firm enough grasp on this earth stuff. So we know from that episode alone that Star knows how a bicycle works. Now, to be fair, that doesn't necessarily mean that at that point in time that she would be just capable of getting on it and riding it herself, but she at least understands fundamentally how it works. She understands that the pedals are something that are moved with your feet to make you move. They are not drawn by giant invisible goats. So again, there is no continuity here. We are completely throwing what Star already knows out the window and making her dumber and making it seem more like it's her first day on Earth, or at least her first week on Earth. We have the scene where Marco literally kisses his bike early on when he's trying to explain it to Marco about his bike and how she's about to get on it. This isn't so much of a problem as it's just weird. We've never seen Marco uh, really care about anything before. In fact, the only thing we've ever really seen Marco obsess over is Jackie Lynn Thomas, so that he has this newfound affinity for his bike, which was never seen before in season one, is just kind of something that's being added in here. It's a retcon. It's not the worst thing in the world, and despite what Stark puts the bike through in this episode, he never seems to get upset over that, so it just seems kind of like a weird thing. I'm not going to harp on that any longer than that. There's plenty of more things that I can pick at than that silly little moment. The problem here now is that after Star gets going on the bike, she doesn't know how to stop. So she's upset with Marco for letting go of her seat after promising not to. She thought that she was doing really good, but now she starts going downhill and realizes she doesn't know how to stop. One thing that we see here is that when this happens, Marco does freak out a little bit, but he's worried about Star, and he actually does something smart. He runs to his house, runs into her room, and he calls her through the mirror. So this is something that's new, and we'll see more of this in Fetch, the companion episode to this one, is that Star now seems to have some kind of Munian cell phone or cell mirror, I guess you could say, as her mother will be calling her several times in the next episode on it. So now Star has the ability to reach out to other people from other dimensions, not just by physically going to them with the scissors or by calling them from her room. She now has a portable device to do this. I wish this is something that they had made kind of a deal of. We had seen her get this device. It does stand to reason that her parents might have given it to her after the events of Storm the Castle, because they're worried about her and some of these things that have happened and want a way to be able to get in touch with her if she's outside of her room. So it makes sense. This isn't a complaint, but they should have found a way to canonically squeeze it in there, even if it was just a throwaway line of dialogue maybe in the season premiere. But again, not a terrible thing. Uh, Oscar is the next character we're introduced to, who happens to just have parked his car in the Diaz's driveway for no real reason other than plot contrivance. Marco then gets into Oscar's car and tells him that they need to chase after Star so that he can help her. This kind of makes sense. I mean, Oscar's kind of a blank slate of a character. We know he's kind of a slacker. Um, Obviously, he loves his music. He's kind of something of a rocker, or at least a keytar rocker. It's not entirely clear what his character is meant to be. In season one, we get almost nothing more to him than some of the lyrics to his songs. He's not happy with his mother. He's decided to live in his car at the school. And it's continued here that he does basically live in his car. This must mean, since he is able to legally drive, that he must be at least 16 years old. So he's a good 2 years older than Star and Marco, probably making him a junior and them freshmen at Echo Creek High. So this is kind of a big thing. And of course, we know that Oscar has some kind of a record, according to the principal, from when his character was introduced. That's all we really know about him, and to be honest, we don't really learn anything more in this episode, at least nothing worthwhile. We still know that he's living in his car. He's still making his music. Then we see that Glossaric apparently can now come out of any book because he manifests himself through a math book. Glossaric and Oscar tend to hit it off very well, bonding over meatball subs and Oscar trying to teach him musical things. This is all just very weird. We don't really understand why this is done. It seems to be something they wanted to make a thing, but it doesn't seem to really be expanding any of the core characters. Glossaric seems relatively unconcerned with Star's plight. He says it's not a magical problem and just basically starts eating his sandwich and offering one to Oscar. Why Glossaric doesn't seem concerned for Star at this moment in time isn't quite clear. We certainly get that it's not a magical problem, but Star is supposed to be someone that he's supposed to be guiding. He's putting a lot of faith into her not getting hurt on this bicycle when she's kind of dodging and weaving through traffic. This just seems kind of odd. I mean, we get, Glossaric has probably lived for thousands of years. He's helped many different princesses grow into the future queens of Muni. So because he's kind of been there, done that, seen it all, it would make sense that he's not like pulling his hair out, going crazy over this, but you do think that he would actually want to do something more than is being done. But clearly that's not the case, at least not at this point here. For some reason, we then get this really, really terrible rap made of basically auto tuning Marco's voice and just weird keyboard implementations of Oscar while they're going through the town, and Star is basically screaming. It is just this total weird juxtaposed moment that makes no sense whatsoever, and again takes us totally back into regular show territory. What probably makes it all even odder is that we see Star having to avoid all these road hazard signs like she's in some kind of animated version of the Wipeout game. This is just kind of silly. There are so many better things we could do. We have seen, I keep coming back to this episode, but we have definitely seen in the Benedict Incident that Star on her own, with chaos involving around her, just there's so many more interesting things that could happen than her being trapped on a runaway bicycle. I mean, she rode a shopping cart down a massive hill and was basically out of control before and wasn't really scared. The only difference is we can say that she doesn't have her wand here like she did previously, so that would be a big thing. Of course, when the boys pass her and Marco tries to give her wand, she's too gaga overseeing Oscar to take it and ends up continuing on her collision course. We then find that there's a sinkhole in the road and Star is heading right for it. So she goes off this ramp and over the sinkhole and cannot clear it. She's going to fall into it, and then all of a sudden she uses her Muberty wings, and they're like insect wings, so they don't even flap like a bird's wings so much as just kind of buzz more like a fly's, and she manages to barely get over the sinkhole and safely over to the other side. This is something I have kind of a problem with. I'm actually glad that they used her Muberty wings because they've been totally useless since they were introduced at the very end of the Muberty episode. So that's not a terrible thing in and of itself. They should come into play in some capacity. What I don't like is that they literally have not been seen by then. Not only has Star not used them, we have not ever seen them outside of those few frames of animation at the end of the Muberty episode. None of Star's outfits allow for her wings to protrude through the fabric so that she would be able to use them, and the dress she's using certainly doesn't. In fact, the wings aren't coming out of the back of her dress earlier in the episode, and now it's just all of a sudden able to. So this again is a major mistake. What they could have done to rectify that and still been able to use her wings here to save her later on is had some very throwaway line of dialogue, or just have her annoyed by something regarding her wings at the start of the episode, like maybe they're they're bent out of shape or something. Maybe they're not folding in. Who knows? There's many things they could have done, but just a simple line of dialogue, or just her seeing her fussing with them early near at the start of the episode before she ends up on the runaway bike, could have definitely alleviated that problem. This isn't a major breakdown in Star's character. I guess you could say that this is a nitpick, but the show used to have a lot better continuity than it does in season 2. This is absolutely something that could have been fixed. They just simply chose not to. These are lazy routes that were taken. The giant invisible goats. So on Muni, giant invisible goats apparently pull everything. Now, it makes enough sense that they don't have any kind of internal combustion engine on Muni, but we already know that Star is aware from the Benedict Incident that giant invisible goats do not make everything go. She's also ridden in vehicles before. We've seen her in buses several times, so she should be aware at this point that the buses are not pulled by giant invisible goats. Glossaric is another story. We can give him the benefit of the doubt that he might not know about the giant invisible goats not pulling things on Earth, but for someone who's lived as long as he has and who's helped as many princesses reach maturity, both magically and physically, you would think that this should also be something that he knows. The way he brings up the invisible goats, telling Marco to trust them, and his brief attempt to do magic before getting sick to his stomach from the meatball sandwich seems to indicate that he may very well have conjured those on his own, perhaps doing the old dip down and making these goats appear. Uh, that's kind of an interesting thing. Not going to nitpick this as a problem per se, but it is kind of just weird and seemingly out of place. The reason I call things like this into question is because things like this never happened in season one. Earth was very much a normal place, and when abnormal things happened, it was usually because things like Ludo's monsters appeared, or Star opened a hole with the dimensional scissors and they went through it. We would see weird things happen, but these things did not happen on Earth, or if they did, there was an external cause to them. Some of the craziness caused by the party that we see Star's father throw at the Diaz house in Royal Pain when he's temporarily living there, or the monster princess that's trying to steal Star's face in sleep spells. So these are the few exceptions where weird things happen on Earth, but generally, if it's not directly caused by Star's magic or by an outside interfering force, Earth behaves just like normal Earth. And that is something that's going away. We're seeing these wild and weird things begin to happen on Earth, and it doesn't make much sense. Maybe I'm trying to hold out hope that there might be some kind of larger purpose behind all this. Maybe it has to do with the changing of the wand. Maybe there's some other force at play. Maybe Heinous is trying to do something. I really hope at this point in time that they are eventually going to reveal something like that to us, because the way the show is going now is just bad. Regardless, to wrap up this episode, Marco gets on the giant invisible goat, catches up to Star, and here we have the one moment, the one shining light in this entire week, 22 minutes of Star Versus, that they actually get right. Marco grabs onto the seat of her bicycle again to reassure her, and he tells Star that he's there for her and he believes in her. And Star, here, she literally says, "Thanks, Marco, but you believing in me is everything I need." Again, this is a callback to the Benedict Incident, almost a reverse of it. Here, Star states that Marco believing in her is the only thing she needs, and then she's able to put the brakes on the bicycle and stop herself. She finds the courage and gets over her stubbornness, or whatever the reason was, to do that. And at the end of the Benedict Incident, it's almost the opposite. She thinks that Marco believes in her, and at the end, Marco admits that he didn't believe in her. He underestimated her. He didn't think that she could do it. And she's kind of devastated by this. She just slaps the dessert of the banana pudding she made right out of his hand and just essentially walks away. And he's left there like, what just happened? It's probably one of the weirdest yet most poignant ends to an episode of Star Versus, because we can see that Marco has genuinely hurt her, and there's no real resolution. There's no after scene, there's no making up. It's just kind of a life goes on thing. It's a mistake that Marco made that he essentially has to deal with. Considering the Benedict Incident is, for all intents and purposes, one of the sillier episodes of season one, it's amazing how many callbacks seem to get made to that. So this is an interesting thing, and this one thing that they did with Star kind of saying that Marco is she outright says that Marco believing in her is all she needs. This is a positive thing, and about the one thing they're getting right. They're pushing Starco in little ways each week, and while I think it's way too early to be playing with Starco very much, it is good to at least show this kind of trust between the characters. I've said this before, we all know that Star and Marco are going to end up getting together at some point in time. I'd prefer later than sooner, but it looks like the series is going to do sooner rather than later. Regardless, I think most people can agree that relationships turn out a lot better when you're friends with that person first and really know them. So this overall is a positive. At the end of the episode, we see Marco and Glosseric, we see Oscar and Glosseric talking about possibly forming a band together in their sound, and then Glosseric continues to mess with Marco because the giant invisible goats are gone, and Marco still trusts them and ends up falling on his face in the middle of the interstate. It's kind of a weird, surreal end to the episode, but it is Star Versus, and we did have endings to episodes like that in season one, so I'm not going to complain about that. I know I've said several times throughout this episode, I'm not going to complain, I'm not going to complain. And it's not that all these tiny little things are terrible or every single thing that they do is just wrong. It's just there is a lot of lazy writing going on. Unlike in Fetch, which just gets so many things much worse, and we're going to get into that in a moment here. But the overall theme here is that the writing should be better, and we have experienced writers at the helm on this. They know what they're doing, they know these characters. I don't know why the work being turned in is so mediocre. We shouldn't be having to settle for mediocre. Heck, in many cases, we are celebrating mediocrity, and that's a road I do not want to go down. This show is so good. We had, Disney XD gave us Gravity Falls, which was a phenomenal show. It ended back in February, and Star is basically meant to be the one carrying on the torch. Star is a different show than Gravity Falls, but it falls within the same vein in that it really has that crossover audience. It's able to pull in kids and adults alike, and they're really beginning to throw away the potential of having that adult audience in the direction they're going, and I think that's a really, really big mistake. Let me get a little deeper and talk about Fetch, because Fetch is an episode that is just. I don't even know where to begin with this one. Actually, I do know exactly where to begin because this is why I took notes before coming on. All right, let me read the credits briefly here so that we know where to assign the blame. The story is again by Dominic Bisignano and Aaron Hammersley. Also, Amalia Liari and Darren Nefsey herself did contribute to writing the story. The actual writers and storyboarders were Dominic Bisignano was involved, as well as Aaron Hammersley. We also had Yvonne Freeman and Alec Romanillos. And the directors were Dominic Bisignano and Aaron Hammersley themselves. So they were involved in every step of this episode, from the actual coming up with the story to the storyboarding and writing of the actual material and the actual direction of it. So they really deserve the bulk of the blame. Other people contributed, including Darren, but these guys were involved in every step of the way here, and they deserve the blame for it. This is just an atrocious episode. This episode opens with Marco not being able to open a pouch of Capri Sun. A pouch of Capri Sun is like this. I'm sure most people remember them from their childhoods, or maybe you still drink them today. I actually had to go out of my way to acquire some of these today, but this is what they are. They are not hard to open. They come with a straw attached to it like this. Here's a full one. You pull the straw off and you poke it through the hole. And by the end of this review, I will actually perform that action just to show that it is not nearly as difficult as Marco makes it out to be. Lemonade. Why does Marco have such a problem with this? We know from the beginning of the series, the episode Matchmaker, that Marco is an A-plus student. So Marco is not stupid. We know this right off the bat from the canon. He's a smart guy. Moreover, okay, you don't need to be highly intelligent to open a pouch of Capri Sun, or at least put a straw in a pouch of Capri Sun and drink it. Book learning is not going to help you with that, and I completely agree. But Marco has plenty of dexterity. He is quite good at karate. I won't quite say he's an expert because he's far off from getting his black belt, but Marco is, throughout the series, a green belt, and as of an episode ago, he became a red belt. Although he achieved red belt status apparently by watching a videotape, so maybe that part was not much of a accomplishment. But regardless, we have seen Marco with his bare hands and his feet kicking the collective butts of intergalactic monsters. Not to mention being able to break boards, his meditative abilities. The boy has dexterity. This should not be beyond him. Opening a pouch of Capri Sun is something that should be well within his grasp. This is something that apparently is meant to be a laugh, and that's pretty much all Marco contributes to this episode, is having trouble opening a pouch of Capri Sun. It's not much different than Star being obsessed over the hammer and the red belt episode. It's basically something to keep him occupied. This is a great disservice to Marco's character. He is not this stupid or this incompetent, and it's not funny to see this. It's just sad. It means that you literally could not find anything for Marco's character to do. So why didn't you just have him busy with his parents, or have something go wrong at school and him get a detention and have Star dealing with all this? I don't know, but playing a cheap gag like this is just stupid and pointless and insulting to the character. So that's a major issue I have right off the bat, and that doesn't even get into the real plot of the episode. This is nothing more than a stupid minor side plot. We have a recurring theme in this episode of Star completely ignoring her mother's request to write a thank you note to her Aunt Felicity, who has apparently given her this pretty necklace. Again, we see her having the use of the little cell mirror like device so her mother can reach out and touch her from wherever. And Star constantly hangs up on her mother and avoids taking her mother's calls. What's interesting here is whenever we hear the Queen talking, the Queen is not moaning about Star needing to act more like a proper princess, needing to start training herself to be the Queen of Muni. All she wants is for her daughter to write a thank you note. Now, as someone who was once a child, like everyone else watching this video, I would assume, yeah, sometimes you had to write thank you notes when you were kids. It wasn't something that was fun to do, but I mean, come on, Star's 14 years old despite her immaturity level. She should be able to just jot something down and drop it in the intergalactic mail or whatever to her Aunt Felicity. For some reason, she is absolutely unwilling to do this, and it's never really made clear why. It's almost like it's just too much trouble for her to do. This is something that just feels off to me. Star can be selfish. That kind of would make sense. I mean, not only is she a princess, but she is an only child. She's definitely used to getting her way. Uh, so it would make sense for her to have some of those traits, but she's not usually someone who is quite so selfish that she won't thank someone. We see her thank Marco's family, we see her thank Marco herself, we see her even thank her mother, whom she has issues with. So this just seems odd that she's not willing to thank her own aunt, especially when there's nothing revealed like, oh, you know, her and her aunt don't get along or there's bad blood or anything like that. So I am somewhat hung up on that, but there's not really much more to say about it. So we'll just keep going on here. But this her refusal to do this simple thing that would not take effort on her part, nor would it have her compromise who she really is, seems to indicate that the problem in her relationship with her mother may actually be stemming from her. Now, in other episodes, we see her mother acting really terribly, basically like some kind of overbearing alpha bitch. And there, it seems that the problem is actually on the Queen's side. So I don't know why we seem to keep having this ping-ponging between the personality of Star's mother. Is she just wanting the best for her daughter? Is she overbearing and trying to control her daughter? And the relationship between them seems to jump back and forth between okay and really not okay. There definitely needs, at some point in time, to be someone sitting down and just fleshing this out and trying to understand what is the relationship between these two characters. They're mother and daughter. It's understandable that they have different ways of looking at the worlds around them, but it's starting to become noticeable every time the Queen is brought into it that she seems to behave differently. Unless there is actually something up with the Queen herself. But again, if that is the case, then writers, please let us know sooner rather than later. Star also seems to have no real problem with being kicked out of school over the silly dog. She, in her effort to get rid of a dog that's bothering Marco, she throws her wand in a game of fetch. The laser puppies all go run after it, and the wand is caught by this dog in a bush that now will not let it go and growls every time Star tries to grab onto it. Star basically then just carries the dog around her wherever she goes, including school, and ends up getting kicked out of school over it. We see her then go to a convenience store and buy what's essentially a Slurpee. She says that she can't make money because she can't get to her wand because the dog is sitting on her head and the dog still has the wand and won't let it go. Star can't make money. Now, we saw how that big treasure chest of gold and jewels that her parents gave to the principal when she came to this dimension, just to let her into that school. That didn't even give her an actual home. Star just basically settles in with the Diazes. Now, we know from other episodes, like Royal Pain, where the king comes to stay with the Diazes, and Raphael just says, "Oh, you are familiar to me," and just leaves them in charge of Star and Marco and takes off with his wife. And also in Storm the Castle, where we find out in the aftermath that the Diazes used Star's mirror to come to Muni to find their son and find out what's going on. So we know that these people are on good terms. Star's parents and Marco's parents, they get along. There's definitely trust between them with the kids and all. Are Star's parents honestly not providing Marco's parents with some kind of provision for taking care of their daughter? Some kind of currency, even if it's just gold and jewels. We certainly understand that they probably don't have American money on Muni, but it seems odd that the Diazes would not be giving Star some kind of allowance. And we really almost never see Star buy anything throughout the series. The magic wand, there it is again. But beyond that, usually things are just given to her, and when they go out, presumably Marco pays since he knows about Earth money. This is just kind of an odd thing that's sticking with me. It seems odd to me that Star would not have any money. I mean, she's been on Earth for some time. She's living with a family. She's certainly taken care of. Uh, she's not in want for things. She shouldn't just need her wand just to conjure up money. But and then there's the question of what stories would take money that literally just appeared before their eyes from a magic wand. But I guess maybe we're overthinking things a little too much on that. On her way out, Star seems vexed by the automatic door. There's a sign on it she wants to read, and every time she moves, the door moves. This really kind of stuck in my craw. This is season 2. Star has her new wand, and we know that Star has been on Earth for a while at this point in time. Maybe she's not an expert on all things Earth. She certainly wasn't born here or lived here more than a few months, but automatic doors are extremely common. We have seen Star in the town of Echo Creek before. It's not like she never leaves the house. She should have been a master of an automatic door by this point in time. In fact, it seems as though they may have even had some in Quest Buy. So why Star isn't able to grasp just simply taking a step back to be able to read what she wants to, I don't know, but this is all part of making her character stupider. Star is not stupid. I've said this before. She is naive, she is impulsive, and she is impatient. Those are 3 of her biggest traits. But she's definitely not stupid like that she's being made to be, and that's something that I really don't like. She's being made to be uncaring, she's being made to be ignorant and foolish, and those are traits that should just not be appealing to her. They don't make her a role model at all. They're certainly not traits that any girl should be wanting to emulate. So, again, this is bad and kind of dangerous writing for where they're taking it. We have seen Star much more of a normal, relatively well-adjusted girl while still doing things her own Munian way. And now she's having trouble with the simplest things on Earth that have never been shown to be an issue in the past. This is just dumb. We see a return of the phone gag when Star calls Lydia from outside, and Lydia takes the phone from the clerk in the store. When she hangs it up, she literally lets the phone go, and it travels all the way back and hits the cashier in the face. This is a callback to Storm the Castle, where Star does the same thing, hanging up the phone in the Diaz's house, and it quote unquote punches Raphael in the face, according to his own dialogue in that episode. So that's just kind of a continuation thing, not something to complain about, but the fact that they're able to understand continuity and bringing back a joke, and yet they still do such a bad job overall with continuity and keeping things consistent is something that just makes me shake my head. The continuity is very selective. We see then that Marco's eye is affected by the laser puppies. He tries to have the laser puppy open one of these pouches of Capri Sun for him, and instead of the puppy hitting where you would normally insert the straw, it hits Marco in the eye, and his eye is glowing red. Star even comments that his eye is glowing red, and Marco says he's not going to worry about it, even though now he can only see red out of that eye. This is kind of a silly thing on his part. I guess like Star saying that her mom warned her not to sleep with her wand under the pillow because of radiation, but she does it anyway. Are these things that are intentionally being done to make the character stupid? Like there's a whole reason behind it? Or are they just things being done to make the characters more stupid? I don't know, but I certainly don't like it, and we certainly deserve better than this. I know Star does, and Marco especially. Star begins calling the dog with her wand Willoughby because that's the name that Lydia makes up for it. And when they return to the dog park to try to find Willoughby's real owner, Star is actually using Willoughby like a metal detector, holding him up by the hind legs, going beep, beep, where's your odor? Beep, beep. Now, this is just outright stupid. How can Star have so much trouble with something like a bicycle, have trouble with something like an automatic door, and yet know what a metal detector is, a device that she would have absolutely no use for on Earth? This makes no sense whatsoever. Why they put it in there, I don't know. Was it Friday afternoon at 4:45 and they needed something to fill that spot and that's what got put in and never taken out? I don't know, but why do they keep intentionally making Star a dumber and dumber character? It's not something that should be done. Finally, we find that Willoughby took the wand because she is a dog from some other dimension where dogs have all the problems, and she just wants to live a nice, normal dog life on Earth and run away from what her problems are. Star then tells Willoughby that she shouldn't run away from her problems because that's not a healthy thing to do. And when Marco turns around and points out that Star runs away from her problems all the time, Star counters that she just takes breaks from her problems. She doesn't run away from them. I'm going to let this slide in the sense that Star does run away from her problems, but in her point of view, she doesn't. She is kind of a lazy person at times. She definitely doesn't like to deal with confrontation, at least not with the important things in her life. She has no problem with confronting monsters or with someone that's upset her for some reason, but she always puts off confronting her mother, and she always puts off confronting the real issues that she has, substituting taking her problems out on punching monsters in the face, or at least she did when Ludo was still stalking her in season 1. So this I'm going to let slide. It's kind of played as a gag, but that part is actually true to Star's character. Willoughby then tells Marco that he should just punch the straw through the bottom of it because it's much easier, and then proceeds to do it for him. I would never recommend trying to puncture a pouch of Capri Sun through the bottom. You're going to make a mess. Moreover, Marco then comments that he's drinking white grape, but the pouch actually has the picture of an apple on it. I don't know if that is just a serious oversight on the part of the writers and or animators, or if it's again just being done to make Marco stupid. Anything is possible at this point in time. That's a really minor nitpick, and I know I'm reaching for it, but with all the things this episode does wrong, it can't even get a simple little detail like that right, and it's really galling. She then calls Lydia again and gets Willoughby to accept Lydia as her owner. Lydia then seems kind of happy with having the dog. She's desperate for something to love, and Willoughby is okay with this arrangement and finds what she's been looking for. As the two of them go away together, we see Star chewing on her wand. This would continue her oral fixation that we have seen throughout season 1 and season 2. It's an actual constant with her character that they are getting right. Star's mother then calls again about the about writing the note, and Star says she's on a break and just ignores the call, and that's how the story ends. overall, I can't express enough my disapproval with this episode. The insulting to the characters, turning Marco into an idiot, making Star into someone who doesn't understand the most basic things about Earth anymore. These are all major problems with the series in general at this point in time. Marco deserves better, Star deserves better, and we certainly deserve better. And these writers are capable of it. We know they're capable of it from the work they did in season 1 and the episodes they turned in. Whatever train that we're on, whatever expressway we're on towards turning this show into absolutely stupid, goofy, pointless humor like Teen Titans Go or The Amazing World of Gumball, and making Earth randomly have all this ridiculous stuff all around it happen like in regular show, it needs to stop. Star vs. the Forces of Evil is a show that stood on its own in season 1. It did not need to emulate a bunch of shows before it. It was a send up of magical girl animes, and it certainly had homages to them at different points in time, but it never needed to absolutely steal material and steal the formula from other shows. In season 2, that's about all it's doing, is stealing material from other shows and trying to pretend that it's something different. And the show needs to stand on its own. The writers need to actually trust what they created. Darren needs to trust what she created, and she needs to get her staff back to where they were before. I don't know who is responsible for the change. I'm not going to point all the fingers until I have those facts, but whoever's responsible for the change, this needs to stop. This is bad. You have great characters and you have a great world, and there is no reason to change these things around. You need to utilize them as they are. Everything that was created about these characters is already wonderful. They were set up perfectly in season 1. It shouldn't be that much more effort to go into this with season 2. Let me show you what the job of the writers should be at this point in time. You see, this is a can of SpaghettiOs. This essentially represents all the work that really needs to be done at this point in time. You open the can and you pour the pasta into the bowl. See, this is already basically done for you. The characters are written so well, everything will just come together if you trust in what you've done, let the characters bounce off each other, and continue the world. And this here, see this that gets left behind? This is what the writers actually have to do. Their job is simply to take what gets left behind, and this is what they should be creating with. Be filling in the gaps. Be explaining who these characters are, developing the world and all the things that are going to happen. Why did I choose SpaghettiOs for this? Well, anyone who eats SpaghettiOs at any point in time knows that they have a tendency to get stuck in the can. And as a good friend of mine also pointed out, like the show itself, the SpaghettiOs have become a metaphor for it because it's full of holes. Lastly, Capri Sun. This is a sealed pouch of Capri Sun. As you can see, the straw is still attached to it. I'm going to attempt to open this in one try on camera here, just to explain how silly the plot with Marco was in this episode. So I am pulling the straw off the pouch. I am removing the wrapper from the straw. The straw comes with this wonderful, handy little pointy end. Here's the place where it goes into, and there we go. It is now in. Delicious Capri Sun lemonade. That's really all there is to it. It doesn't need to amount to any more than that. So why we're having these issues, I don't know. Why we've gone in this direction, I don't know, but things absolutely need to change. We deserve better than that. And if you're enjoying these episodes, if you're enjoying the dumbing down of the characters, I strongly urge you to take a second look at the way that things are going, because these characters deserve better. If you liked what the first season of the show was and now you're approving of what's going on in season 2, then I think you're on another plain you've somehow lost track of what the characters were in the break. It's easy to be excited about new episodes because it took us almost a year to get them, and I want the show to succeed. But if it's going to keep going down these roads and keep making these characters dumb and not trusting the audience enough to do something a little more exciting, to do something that really allows these characters to explore their true potential and to allow us to see their world as it is, including the conflicts and the consequences of things that can happen, then maybe this is a show that we simply don't need anymore. I hate to be the person to say that. I absolutely love season 1 of this show, and I want to see more of this show, but I don't want to see more of it as it is currently. I've decided to continue doing these episodes every week. I'm going to keep reviewing them because there needs to be a chronicle made. Someone has to be out there explaining what the problems are and pointing them out for everyone else to see. I know this video ran long, the better part of an hour, and I didn't mean to take up so much time, but I have a lot to say about these things, and it's a passionate subject to me, so I do hope you've enjoyed what I've tried to create here. Maybe the show will change and things will get better, but at the very least that I hope that I'm able to get people to take a second look, and if this is something that you've been celebrating up until now, maybe you can see why it's actually a problem and that we need to get back to the level of writing that the show was at before so that it can reach its full potential and so that it can be something that's worth pursuing. Because as it is right now, it's simply trying to be a bunch of other things that it isn't, and it's aping shows that are being written far better than it. That is my rant/review of Star on Wheels and Fetch. I certainly will be getting around to doing a video on the new episode of My Little Pony that was on this weekend, and of course I want to address week 2 of the Summer Adventures of Steven Universe, since we had some great episodes last week as well. Maybe we can talk about some better things that are going on and not just have to hold my head for an hour about how terrible things are. But right now, Star and Marco are getting so dumb that they are in danger of losing object permanence. If they continue down this path and continue to be made dumber and dumber, how is anyone going to be able to relate to them? These characters are not stupid. You know it, and I know it. And I ask you to please stop embracing this terrible version of them that we're seeing. Thank you, and good night.